Asia 21, I would say, is a global family of dreamers and thinkers.
Very diverse individuals who are individually quite accomplished.
People that when you meet them, you get inspired by them.
Incredibly smart, but incredibly humble people
that are working on some of the most pressing issues in their respective countries.
Who have a common heartbeat about making this world a better place, not just by their own strength and their talents, but by the ability to work together.
I am Asia 21.
Mama Asia Viseka Sangidane
Asia 21.
Asia 21. Ma Asia 21.
我是亚洲阿亚本源的青年领袖。
私はアジア。
Makikita sa panimula ng 1987 Constitution ang mga katangiang mahalaga sa bawat Pilipino, lalo na sa ating mga lider.
Panatang Makapilipinas.
Panatang Makapilipinas.
Panatang Makapilipinas.
Iboboto ko Makapilipinas.
Makabayan sa lupang sinilangan.
Makataot may respeto.
Sa buhay at pamilya.
Siya ay makatuwiran at patas makisama.
Masigasig tumulong makaahon ang bawat isa.
Makatarungan,
makalingat,
maalalahanin sa kapwa,
makakasama ang lahat.
Siya ay di mangiiwan,
makapagtataguyod ng kabutihang panlahat.
Siya ay makapatas,
siya ay makatotoo, siya ay may malinaw na pananaw para sa makabagong tumas.
Higit sa lahat, siya ay makadiyos.
Kaya't ayaw niya ng karahasan.
Siya'y makakapayapaan.
Iboboto ko isang taong makakalayaan,
isang leader na makakaligtasan.
Isang Pilipinong makabuluhan at matino ang pamumuhay.
Sa isip, sa salita, at sa gawa. Gabayan ang Pilipinong bumoto ng responsable. Yan naman ang aming panata sa PPCRV.
Sa pagpili ng liderato, laging tatandaan, dapat nasa kanya lahat ng katangian na makapilipinas, makapilipinas, na makapilipinas. Iboto ang makapilipinas, na makapilipinas. Taong may respeto sa buhay at pamilya, makabuluhan at matinoong pamumuhay. Siya yung makapagtataguyod ng kabutihang panlahat, di mangiiwan, makakasama ang lahat. Makatotoo, hindi sinungaling, makalingat, maalalahanin, makatarungan, makakalikasan, iaalay ang buhay para sa bayan. Sa pagpili ng liderato, laging tatandaan, maganda sa kanya lahat ng katangian na makapilipinas, na makapilipinas, na makapilipinas. Iboto ang makapilipinas. Yeah, makakalaya nito'y ipaglalaban, makakapayapaan, ayaw ng karahasan, makabatas at makabayan, masigasig tumulong, makaahon ang bawat isa. Malinaw ang pananaw sa makabagong bukas, makatwiran at patas pakisama, at higit sa lahat makadiyos siya dapat. Sa pagpili ng liderato, laging tatandaan, dapat nasa kanya lahat ng katangian ng makapilipinas, makapilipinas, makapilipinas. Iboto ang makapilipinas, makapilipinas.
Gabayan ang Pilipinong bumoto ng responsable. Yan naman ang aming panata sa PPCRV.
Asia 21, I would say, is a global family of dreamers and thinkers.
Very diverse individuals who are individually quite accomplished.
People that when you meet them, you get inspired by them.
Incredibly smart, but incredibly humble people
that are working on some of the most pressing issues in their respective countries.
Who have a common heartbeat about making this world a better place, not just by their own strength and their talents, but by the ability to work together.
I am Asia 21.
Mama Asia Viseka Sangidane Taipna
Asia 21.
Asia 21. Ma Asia 21.
我是亚洲阿亚曼尼亚的青年领袖。
私はアジア。
I organized by the Asia Society of the Philippines, Parish Pastoral Council for Responsible Voting or PPCRV, at ng Youth Leadership for Democracy PH. Kasama din natin ang Bantay Boto, Junior Philippine Society for Public Administration, PUP College of Political Science and Public Administration Student Council, UP Calasat, UP National College of Public Administration and Governance Student Council or UP NCPAD-SC, UP NCPAD Umalabokan, and UP Solidaridad. Bago po tayo magsimula, reminder for everyone in this venue to please wear masks at all times. Moving of seats is also prohibited so we can maintain social distancing. The only exit for the venue is on the rightmost door. Dito lang po tayo pwede mag-exit. And of course, let us ensure the safety of everyone who are here with us tonight. Maraming salamat po sa ating venue for today, the International Center for Public Administration ng UP NCR. Hello din po, live po tayo ngayon sa Facebook page ng Asia Society Philippines at ng YouthLed PH. Sa mga nanonood po ng live, paki-comment kung saan kayo nanonood for today para ma-shout out namin kayo mamaya. Gawin po natin mas interactive ang ating talakayan ngayong umaga. Para po sa ating live audience, kung mayroon po kayong mga tanong, mayroon po tayong Q&A session later. Para naman po sa mga online viewers natin, pwede po kayong magbahagi or mag-post ng inyong insights or comments. Itag ang YouthLed PH, Asia Society PH, o PPCRV sa social media, kagaya ng Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, at iba pa. Ang top comments at insights po para sa ating episode ay mabibigyan ng kabilang ka sa 2022 merchandise and stickers. Para simulan po ang ating programa, pakinggan po natin ang isang mensahe mula sa Executive Director ng Asia Society Philippines, Ms. Joy Alampay.
Maraming salamat kay. Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. As the world and our country slowly reopen, we are very pleased to welcome all of you to our first, the Asia Society Philippines first in-person activity in 2 years. I'm sure yung YouthLed din, sabi nila, it's their first in 2 years. So, maraming salamat po at nagkita-kita tayo dito sa Citizens Election Forum. Again, this is in collaboration with our organization and the Parish Pastoral Council for Responsible Voting and Youth Leadership for Democracy. The May elections are barely 6 weeks away. The closer we get to the polls, the more the importance of the youth, civil society, and the private sector all come into focus. You are all crucial to the fostering citizen engagement and ensuring clean and honest elections. So before and beyond voting, we believe it is important to create spaces where people can come together to share insights and of course to get involved. We underscore the importance of listening and of coming together as a community for the 2020 elections as well as all that it is at stake with our choices. Many thanks to our Asia Society Board Co-Chair and PPCRV Chair, Ms. Myla Villanueva, for her inspiring work at PPCRV, and to Ms. Shane Harhead, Chief of Party of YouthLed, for her leadership in shaping this forum. Our appreciation also to the UP system and Dr. Nelly Bernia, Vice President for Public Affairs, for your warm welcome to all of us. And to our very active youth partners who are present here today, namely Bantay Boto, Junior Philippine Society for Public Administration, PUP College of Political Science and Public Administration Student Council, UP Kalasag, UP National College of Public Administration and Governance Student Council, UP NCPAG, Umalawakan, and the UP Solidaridad. Maraming salamat po sa inyong partisipasyon at masigasig na pakikinig, especially also to those that are with us online on our Facebook pages. Let us continue to set the stage for more open and honest and critical dialogues for these landmark elections and our collective role in shaping our nation's future. Thank you po ulit at isang magandang umaga po sa ating lahat.
Po tayo para mas maraming kabataan at mga viewers ang makapag-participate. Now may we call on Dr. Elena Pernia, the Vice President for Public Affairs of the University of the Philippines. Malugod ko kayo binabati ang Asia Society Philippines na kasama na ang PPCRV at ang YouthLed sa inyong paggawa ng ganitong klaseng forum. No? Hindi pala ito ang una ko, pangalawa ko pala ito. No? Pangalawang face-to-face, pero kasama pa rin natin ang ating mga online audience. No? So isang magandang umaga at malaking pasasalamat sa inyong makabuluhang gawain na magsulong sa ating adhikaing na maipatibay natin ang ating demokrasya. Good morning, and on behalf of the officials, faculty, staff, and students, I bid you welcome to the University of the Philippines. It is our duty and our honor to host your forum on why and how we as Filipino citizens should be involved in this year's landmark election. And it is my personal pleasure to be with you, as I believe, like you all, that for democracy to work, each of our voices and our participation matters. This forum is squarely within the mandate of the UP as enshrined in our charter to provide teaching, learning, and networking opportunities for responsible citizenship and the development of democratic values. Guided by the values of honor, excellence, and compassion, UP endeavors to lead as a public service university through knowledge sharing and network building efforts. What for is knowledge if these are not shared with policy and decision makers at the local and national levels, with the private sector, and with the general public? It warms our heart that you are doing just that this morning, putting focus on the importance of voter education and the value of citizen participation in the electoral process. We are one with you in the hope that more Filipinos, especially the young, who comprise a significant portion of the voting population, will make enlightened choices of leaders who will not waste our time. Let me briefly mention a few of our public service initiatives that we recently in the system implemented to promote voter education for May 22 elections. One is upsupport2check.ph. This website is a collaborative fact-checking initiative of the academe, media, and civil society dedicated to counter disinformation and provide the public with verified information. We have also partnered with the Citizens Alliance for Just Peace, a group of 4 major peace networks for the peace and the presidentiables, a national online forum series with each of the country's presidential candidates. With CIFAL Philippines, or the International Training Centers for Local Authorities and Local Actors, UP, through our TVUP, is soon to launch a forum series titled Leaders in Focus, Embedding Sustainable Development in the Governance Agenda of Candidates in 2022. Moreover, we are active collaborators with Democracy Watch Philippines, a non-partisan voter education program working in partnership with colleges and universities across the country. UP also assists other voter education programs for its own constituents. For example, the offices of the Student Region and the Student Development Services in their activity to encourage greater political participation by educating and capacitating UP students on how to engage in the electoral processes beyond simply casting their vote. Hindi maisasantabi ang kahalagahan ng ating paglahok sa halalan. Ito ay isang pambihirang pagkakataon na maipamalas at maisagawa natin ang ating pagiging makabayan at responsableng mamamayan. Kaya nagpapasalamat ako at pinabati ko ang Asia Society Philippines para sa inyong napapanahon at mahalagang serbisyong publiko. Muli isang bati ng magandang umaga at naway kapupulutan natin lahat ng makabuluhang aral at kalinawagan ang forum na ito. At higit pa dito, sana ay maibahagi natin lahat ang ating bagong karunungan sa ating mga kaibigan, sa ating pamilya, at sa iba't iba pa nating kakilala. Mabuhay tayong lahat. Muli, maraming salamat sa inyong pakikinig. Maraming salamat po. Tunay nga pong UP has been a hallmark of strengthening democracy in the Philippines. And I hope we follow that theme. I hope, kagaya ng sinabi ni Dr. Bergen, na importante ang voters' education and citizen participation. Mayroon na lamang po tayo 5 weeks bago ang elections 2022. At yan po ang pag-uusapan natin ngayong umaga. Nakakamiss no na maka-witness ng live presentations. So I am pleased to invite our first speaker. She is currently the chairperson of the Parish Pastoral Council for Responsible Voting, or PPCRV, a non-profit and accredited citizens arm for clean, fair, transparent, and peaceful elections in the country. Siya rin po ay isang technology pioneer with more than 30 years of leadership and experience in the local and global technology industry. She also founded 5 successful startup ventures and founded MBA Group, which has been serving digital transformation and technology solutions to different sectors locally and internationally. She also served in international industry organizations such as the GSM Association, the Global Telecom Women's Network, and the Vice Chair of Asia Society Philippines, which is one of our partners this morning. She is a longtime trustee of Go Negosyo and the World Wildlife Fund Philippines. May we please call on Ms. Myla Villanueva to talk about citizen engagement and volunteerism for the election.
Thank you. Event, and what an important one as we enter the last month of our election cycle. So I'm here today to speak to you as the chair of the PPCRV. I would like to again thank the UP system and the National College of Public Administration for hosting us. So who and what is the PPCRV? The Parish Pastoral Council for Responsible Voting is a national, political, but non-partisan lay movement that works assiduously for clean, honest, accurate, meaningful, and peaceful elections. And we are about 500,000 volunteers strong. And we will be with you guarding the votes of our public on election day in about 106,000 precincts. Now, my introduction states that I have been involved in many initiatives, both locally and globally, but I feel the work of the PPCRV is one of the most complicated ones in my entire career. It being that you have to care for parish-based volunteers and their needs, some 500,000 of them. We work very closely with government at the Commission of Elections, another challenging endeavor, as we both have the same mission but view things very differently at times. We have to be very transparent and make media our partners. in answering the questions of the public. And of course, we have to be technology experts. I'm very comfortable with that, but the work, has many stakeholders in order to deliver champ elections. At the heart of our work is the volunteer. They are one of the most committed volunteers I've ever had the opportunity to be with. On election day, they work and come to us by horseback, by tricycle, by foot, by any means in order to serve you, our public. This 2022, we have about 18,000 positions to fill. It's quite a daunting number for the voter. And we have about 65.7 million registered voters. Historically, we have about a 71% turnout, quite a large one. And I believe that this will be the same for this very passionate election for many people. We probably have the longest ballot in the world. We are expecting to vote in about 106,000 voting or clustered precincts across 37,000 voting centers this May 9. So it is a very large one, and we have to be proud of the fact that we are probably also the largest end-to-end automated election in the world. Quite modern, we have issues every election, but I must say that this is something we have to be proud of as a country. So our accreditation with the COMELEC spans a number of responsibilities. We have our voters registration campaign, which of course was extended for 30 days, and it yielded quite a number of new voters in our roster, about 4 million strong if my data serves me right. We have responsibilities for the voters assistance desks, where you find our youth volunteers helping our voters find their precincts, and this is important at a time of pandemic to get in and out of the voting center. There's the poll watching, where we are present in all of the precincts as much as we can. And we do have the all-important unofficial parallel count, which I will spend time explaining today. So just to share some of the registration campaigns and the voter education campaigns that we have already finished across Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. We cater to the 16 values found in the preamble of our Constitution. Yes, there are 16 values in your Constitution that asks of you on how to be a good citizen. And I certainly think we should ask it of our leaders. So it centers around makadiyos, makabayan, makatao, and makakalikasan. And of course, we needed to reach our non-digital citizenry as well. So we are planning out other forms of media aside from digital. And this is an important element for our young and new voters. It's important for me personally as a technology expert to help them understand what happens to their ballots upon casting and feeding it to the vote counting machine. We barely see what happens, and then in a few hours after the closing of election, you have your results. Thus, it is important that we all understand what happens to my ballot. So I've asked members and experts in our technology community to speak in the language that they will understand. This is an ongoing training and webinars that can be found on our web pages. It talks about the VCM, how it works, how is transmission happening, and how do we make sure that your votes are counted. So let's talk a little bit about the all-important unofficial parallel count, which is always in the mind of our public. upon the closing of our precincts. Here is your VCM. A lot of you are familiar with this. And at the end of the election night, we start at 6 a.m., finish at 7 p.m. Our more than about half a million volunteers are accredited or have the right by law to pick up the fourth copy of our election return. The EB or our teachers working in the precincts print about 8 copies before the transmission of your votes. So it is important that we pick up the pre-transmission copy. Why is this significant? Because we also pick this up, hopefully across 106,000 precincts. We do our best. But this now gets sent to our command center this year to be at the University of Santo Tomas. What do we do there? Essentially, to step back, your VCMs transmit the results of your elections to 3 servers. The first one being the National Board of Canvassing server, which belongs to the COMELEC. It is here that they proclaim officially winners. We have the central server, wherein the COMELEC tries in real time to show the votes in their websites. And there's what you call the transparency server, which belongs to the PPCRV and the Kapisanan ng Broadcasters ng Pilipinas. So, at the UST, we are sharing this information on the election returns with the majority political party, the minority political party. This is the 2019 diagram. The majority and minority will be announced shortly. And of course, all members of our media who are embedded with us on election night plus 10 days. So again, what is the significance of this fourth copy and the transmission servers? So on the top part of your slide, you will see that these are physical ERs that our volunteers sent to us by all means. And then in the lower part of the diagram, you will see the representation of the VCM transmitting electronically. It is in the command center that we match these two. Again, the importance of the work there is to assure the public that nothing happens to your vote in the process of transmission. We are ensuring that no dagdag bawas is happening. This was a huge problem during the manual elections, and we are ensuring the public that this cannot happen under our watch. Here are some pictures. We really invite all of our young people to volunteer, not just in the precincts, but our command center. It is a very happy time when you receive ERs from all over the country and sense how they voted. So we really invite you and your barkadas for a meaningful type of work, but also a very enjoyable and fun one. Just as a report, in 2019, there were 87,000 precincts. We picked up 77,000 of the returns while we were at then Pope Pius. We were able to encode 60,000 of those returns during the 10-day period that we worked. And to report again, we had a 99.995% match, which means that there was no dagdag bawas happening. An important one for the credibility of our elections. There are many ways by which you can volunteer, and the work is quite expansive. I'll just mention a few of them. Our volunteer experts in IT conducted, along with the COMELEC and 67 other experts, the source code review of the software which will run our election system, both the VCM and the canvassing. We also are watching out for the printing of your ballots. We also will have an important activity called final testing and sealing from May 2 to May 7, where 10 sample ballots will be shaded in a mock election in the precincts, and we will feed it to the VCM to ensure that your VCMs are working properly. Of course, we will need volunteers in the precincts to ensure that there is no cheating there. And we train them to watch out for the various modes that can happen. And again, it is very meaningful work for young people. I was once a young volunteer. And aside from the voters assistance desk, the collection of the ERs, and there are other logistical ways you can help with food and prayer. We are at once parish-based, but we work with our brothers and sisters in the Muslim community for the Barm and Muslim areas of our country. This has been ongoing for quite some time, and we are happy to say that all the denominations are welcome. 2019 was the year of the youth, but I think it is always the year of the youth for us. This election is about you, our young people, and therefore we really encourage you first to vote, but also to discern your vote. This is going to affect your life in the next 6 years, so please don't take it lightly, and pray and think and discern what is important to you, but also what is important to our country. Now, volunteering, again, in my experience, is quite meaningful because you see how much fragility there is in our democracy. And it is quite important that when you see it up close, that it becomes even more meaningful to at once guard your vote, but also discern your vote. If I can take a little bit of a diversion, the war that we have in Ukraine and Russia is about self-determination. And we have it. Don't take it for granted that you can come to your polls on May 9 and decide whoever you wish. And I hope wisely. Again, some more pictures of our youth volunteers across the country. Again, it is a happy time. And we really need your support. So be a volunteer, join PPCRV.org is open, and so are our social media pages. And let's do this for the love of our God and our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Myla. We really have a role to play, and of course, maraming salamat sa PPCRV sa patuloy na pagbabantay ng integrity ng ating elections. More power po to PPCRV. Up next naman po, pag-uusapan naman po natin, kanina nabanggit ni Ms. Myla yung importansya ng participation ng ating kabataan. To talk about understanding the youth vote, youth electoral engagement, our next speaker is the Chief of Party of Youth Leadership for Democracy. She is recognized both locally and internationally for her work on education and development. She has led and co-founded youth-focused organizations and managed the implementation of nationwide programs of democratic citizenship, education, and good governance. She also has executive management experience in the private sector with a focus on corporate social responsibility and human capital development. May we call on Ms. Natalie Christine D. Jorge, or Jean Jorge.
Thank you, Kay. Thank you, Kay, for that introduction. It's my pleasure to be with all of you this morning.
We are proud to organize this timely event with fellow partners in democracy and citizen engagement, the Parish Pastoral Council for Responsible Voting, represented by its Chair Bayan Villanueva, Asia Society Philippines, represented by its Executive Director, Ms. Joy Lampay, the Movement for Good Governance, represented by its founding member, Darwin Mariano. Thank you also, Dr. Pernia, for your warm welcome and inspiring remarks. To my colleagues in YouthLed, to all our partner youth organizations, to our audience online and present today, good morning and thank you in advance for your attention. Thank you also for being with us as we take the steps toward normalcy through this face-to-face event. Hybrid event. So Youth Leadership for Democracy. Youth Leadership for Democracy is a program that aims to enable the youth to reclaim its democratic space and be provided the capacity building of platforms to be able to do so in an effective, knowledgeable, and strategic manner. We believe that empowering youth leaders and youth organizations and increasing their capacity to participate effectively, politically, and supported by a strong foundation of civic education leads to stronger participation in democratic governance. Why is it important for us to participate in democratic activities and to be aware of the importance of democracy and governance in our everyday lives? As we struggle with economic and political inequalities, and while we continue to face challenges in education, health, climate and disaster resilience, and now the continued effects of a global pandemic, we seek to find a role in uplifting this continued cycle of inequalities and determine what we can do to contribute to actionable solutions that we can start in our own localities and communities. Youth political and civic participation has always played a large role in Philippine democracy. In each critical moment of our political and democratic history, the youth have played pivotal roles, whether in the form of active protest, politics, through literature, or even the arts. Civic action, especially from the youth, has been used to demand a better and more equitable future, and in the process also redefine democracy and democratic action. In our programs and events around the country, we encounter many young people demonstrating grounded knowledge of issues affecting the country and the desire to engage with new leaders and participate proactively in democratic activities. I am sure it is the same here in UP, the seat of student power, youth voices, and a showcase for youth dynamism and energy. In YouthLed, we believe in the youth and the capacity to innovate, participate, and collaborate towards addressing local and national issues and concerns. We aim to provide the platform and the support structure for the youth to be able to accomplish this. As students and youth leaders, you can lead youth engagement efforts in your school and in your community. You also have the opportunity to share your voices responsibly and fight the vulnerabilities and instability caused by disinformation and be instruments of truth, fairness, and accountability among your peers and communities. Last year, we conducted the National Youth Survey with SWS to determine the values, aspirations, motivations, and civic engagement of Filipino youth. We had 4,900 respondents representing all regions and major cities, with 81% of our respondents coming from Class D, representing the largest bulk of families in the country. This gave us an opportunity to understand our audiences better and to also gauge and assess differences and commonality in data sets between regions and major cities in the country. A large majority of youth, at 81%, feel very proud of being a Filipino, and 16% feel quite proud. This is reflective across all areas and social demographics. When we compare this to youth data from 1996 or 25 years ago, there was a significant increase with youth at 69% feeling very proud of being a Filipino. Pride in country and having a strong sense of nationalism are key factors in ensuring an active citizenry that will prioritize and protect democracy and democratic values. We are encouraged by this generation's pride in being a Filipino. I think I was talking with you, Robbie, Darwin also. 25 years ago, I think we were the youth, yeah. So, although I don't know why it was low, but anyway. I'm trying to study it now. Okay, so among those surveyed, 70% were satisfied with Philippine democracy, an increase of 15 percentage points from youth in 1996, which was at 55% satisfaction. The appreciation for democracy within this generation of youth also gives us hope. Hope that this generation continues to be defenders of freedom and democracy. This slide, you can see, I won't go through it anymore, but it shows selected some regions and selected some cities, and this shows satisfaction on democracy from these different areas. On defining democracy, youth define this as social equality, at 33%, good governance at 25%, norms and procedures at 22%, and freedom and liberty at 19%. For the upcoming 2022 elections, there are 65.7 million registered voters, as mentioned by Ms. Myra, majority of which will fall under the age of 41, accounting for 56% of the total voting population. With majority of registered voters coming from the youth sector, the capacity to elect the next president is in your hands. Your choice of leaders will shape your community and our country's future. In our survey, among those who voted in any general election, we asked for their reason for voting in the elections. Top reason at 52% said they did so because it was their civic duty. This was the main reason in most areas and social demographic groups. The next reason cited were because it was their right to vote, at 35%, because they believed it was important to vote, at 27%, it was a way of creating change in the country and a way of expressing their opinions or views. All these are correct. Voting is an act of citizenship and is the first step towards participative democracy. But what would your reason to vote be? And more importantly, who or what influences your vote and makes you determine your final candidate choices? When we asked this to the youth through our survey, majority cited family as having the greatest deal of influence in the youth's political decisions. The endorsement of one's family was cited as having the greatest deal of influence in a Filipino youth's decision who to vote for in the May 2022 national elections at 54% respondents. It is the same in most areas and social demographic groups. This is the same for the local level at 55%. Moreover, 59% of all respondents look to their family as a guide on their stance on political issues, and 57% look to their family as a guide on their support for government policies and activities. So the influence of family is not surprising, but we also see this as an opportunity for you, the youth, to become political influencers in your own families and communities. You have the power to influence and make your opinions known. Through proper discernment, a process for assessing candidate choice, and productive discourse, you have the capacity to influence. So we also presented our respondents with individual and collective civil and political actions. So some of the examples are here. Like 60% have liked or shared political or social posts, 54% have sought out news about political issues. The results shown here reflect individual, civil, and political actions, many of them online. We are encouraged to note that when presented with issue-based advocacies rather than general modes of collective political participation, such as joining a political party, Filipino youth were more likely to take action. Survey results tell us that the youth are more likely to take collective action on poverty, violence against women and children, lack of access to quality education, and the list goes on. Not to be forgotten is the importance of values in character formation and in understanding the foundation of youth aspirations, motivations, and civic and political engagement. We presented the youth with a list of 15 Filipino values. Respondents were allowed to give up the 3 responses. The most important overall is respect at 46%. For individual values, the most important overall for the youth is humility at 35%. Acceptance of those who are different from yourself at 50%. Avoidance of harming other people and being a reliable and trustworthy member of your family were top of mind, most important individual values among the youth. This tells us how important inclusivity and family are to the youth today. We hope that this open-mindedness and value for respect also translates to being open to listen to each other even if it differs from your own views, and when it can be an opportunity to learn or to influence. It is important that the youth recognize the power of collective voices and the value of maximizing civic and political engagement. This can be in the form of online and offline petitions and advocacies, engaging with your local politicians, developing projects that will benefit the community, taking action when you see wrongdoing, upholding the truth at all times, or as simple as following the law as good Filipino citizens. For the youth to be able to protect democracy, you must also be able to recognize failures in democracy and be ready to take action from it. Okay, so this one, so we have two interesting, what do you call this? Okay, what do you call this? Infographic, yeah. Okay, so here we have a week in the life of a Filipino youth. So this basically shows that, well, we wanted to determine best entry point for youth engagement, and so this is, although we have to take into consideration that when we did the survey, it was ahead of the pandemic, so you can see a lot of online activities, volunteer activities as well. And then this one we can share with all of you. It's a snapshot of the Filipino youth, which has some of the data that I shared earlier and more. We also have a full report that's going to be coming out soon. So if you just share with us your email or your contact details, we can share this with you. So this is interesting because it also shows like the kind of leader that young people want to be and the kind of leader that they want to see in government. So there's a contrast there. And then and also use of traditional social media. So here we have Kabilang Nasa 2022. I just want to share, like, I have 3 slides, I think, on this. So this is YouthLed's Youth Electoral Engagement Program. Kasama ka, kabahagi ka, and kaisa ka represents our 3-point agenda composed of a pre-election, election, and post-election program. So pre-election, we have our voters' reg, voters' ed campaigns. Election period, we have our voter turnout campaigns, our voters' education programs. We will also have election monitoring on election day. And then for post-election, review and assessment of campaign promises, empower engaged youth networks to participate in governance processes through LYDCs, LYD roles. And then we will also be having, of course, our clusters for our civic education program, Civic Hubs and Project Citizen. So just to show, these are our youth champions and youth leaders. We have presence in all of the regions. And then, so this is just a sample of some of the content of our voter education modules and materials. So it includes checks and balances, we have a checklist, we have roles and responsibilities of all government positions. So we also do customized voters education program for schools, LGUs, and the private sector. We also have a partnership with PETA. We will be releasing some really interesting videos soon. I wanted to show one today, but yeah, we will share it with you all. And then, so this is just an example of our voter selection toolkit, which we did in partnership with YouthLed Philippines, and that's the checklist. And these are our issue-based election campaign stickers and pins. So we wanted to bring some today, except that it's still at the printer. We already, because actually this whole month we've been going around the different provinces. So this is our first face-to-face event here in Manila, but regionally we've been going around doing face-to-face activities already. So they seem to be a little braver than us when it comes to face-to-face activities. So but these are really cute stickers and pins. But we'll make sure that all of you will be sent some of these. And so here you choose your advocacy for our issue-based campaign. So these are just some of the online activities that we've done at events. So there. So that's my last slide. So those are all of our activities. If you would like, I don't have the YouthLed ending slide with all of our social media handles, but if you just Instagram and Facebook, you'll be able to see all of our activities there, and we look forward to having you participate in some of our activities. But before I close, I just want to take this opportunity, since we have our youth audience online and we have our youth leaders from different youth organizations present here. I would like to emphasize for youth 3 steps in civic engagement in claiming your democratic space. First, find your voice and own it. Your voice and opinion matters, whether at home, at school, or in your community. Participate in discussions, learn more about local and national issues, engage in intelligent discourse, create content that contributes to learning and enlightenment. Let your voices be heard. Next is to find your purpose and live it. We all have a role to play as students, as sons, daughters, citizens. We all have our duty to family, society, and country. But find what it is that will fuel your passion and allow you to live to the utmost of your abilities and achieve your full potential. Take every opportunity to lead, be of service, and contribute to nation building. And finally, be the future you want to see. Each decision you make in your life journey matters. Nobody else holds or controls your future but yourselves. Your choice of words, friends, actions, work, partners, all determine the kind of future you will have. Have high standards for yourselves and be leaders in your spheres of influence. Live by your values and principles and stake a claim to your future. And this coming elections, use your voices to uphold democracy, enlighten minds, and elect the right leaders and make positive change happen for the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jane. The survey results that she shared, we did it in partnership with the social weather stations. So the participants are really reflective of the youth today, since we interviewed around 4,800 youth across the country. So as she mentioned, the results of that survey will come out soon. But hopefully the initial insights that we gained about how family influences the youth vote and their political stance in social issues, hopefully we can consider that in the rest of our last hurrah for our voters education series. Up next, to talk about the challenges and opportunities for citizen engagement online, which I think is relevant for a lot of us. Our last speaker is an Asia 21 young leader, entrepreneur, professional manager, theater producer, and lawyer who combines 2 decades of experience in market access, public affairs, and communications in the Asia Pacific. He is the founder of Ticket to Me, the Philippines' first fully digital and fastest growing ticketing and event technology company with more than 11,000 cash payment outlets throughout the country. He is currently the Vice President for External Affairs in the Philippines for the United Health Group, and he is the founder of the Movement for Good Governance. May we please call on Attorney Darwin Mariano.
Magandang umaga po sa kanilang lahat. Salamat. Thank you very much to the Asia Society Philippines, to the Parish Pastoral Council for Responsible Voting. The University of the Philippines, I am happy to be back home. Alumni po ako. Hindi po ng NCPAG, CSSP, and then law. Matagal na po akong hindi nakabalik. Thank you again for the introduction. My name is Darwin Mariano, and I'm here to talk about an interesting topic. Siguro, jumping off from what Myla and Ching talked about, I'm going to be talking about my own experiences on the challenges and opportunities for citizen engagement online. But to start, maybe let me take you back almost 3 decades. Di naman, more than. Around 700 days before the 1998 presidential election. I think some of you may not have even been born yet nung panahon na yun. But around 700 days bago po nagkaroon ng eleksyon for president. Similar to, well, at least much closer now for us. My mentor, idol, and I guess my first professional influence, Raul Rojo, was running for president. Okay, so 1998 po ito, he ran for president twice. And at that time, he wrote a document. Very few copies survived. There could be copies that are found in the Rojo Museum in Naga. Pero it was called A Government for Filipinos in the 21st Century. He prepared it originally as a set of notes to guide him as he embarked on the campaign and to remind him what his lessons were. As he began as a student leader during the Marcos era, he became a lawyer and then became a public servant shortly after when democracy was restored in 1987. Ako po, I was a young law student at that time, several hundred meters up the street, and I had just founded the Rojo for President Youth Movement. So yun po yung unang baptism ko of fire. And the reason why I want to take you back decades and maybe refer back to this document is it's remarkable how many of the insights that he shared at that time have been proven true and how many of them have been reinforced by history that has come after. Okay? So some of it may not be new, but I think there are lessons to be learned for all of us. So it's in this context that I wanted to share with you my own thoughts on challenges and opportunities for citizen engagement, particularly online. Okay. So in that document, that eventually became, I guess, his treatise on his political philosophy, he talked about 3 forces of change. So nung panahon po na yun, there was still a lot of talk of globalization. Many of the multilateral organizations were springing up. The internet was in its very early days. Social media did not exist. The email just came to the Philippines maybe a few years after. Noong mga panahon po na ito, pager pa po ang ginagamit namin. Okay? Wala pang smartphone. May cellular phones na, pero only the very rich, and they were very bulky and heavy. So he talked about globalization. Pero yung understanding po ni Raul Rojo, like many of us at that time, was globalization from the top. Globalization in the economy in terms of freer movement of people, resources, goods, services. There was already globalization or some globalization in politics. Again, I mentioned the rise of the multilateral organizations, the trade groups, the fall of the Berlin Wall, and the rise of China. China wasn't the superpower that it was at that time. But China's rise, in part, may be attributed really to this global movement of trade, goods, and services. But he also talked about the potential and the rising globalization of technology. So again, this was the very early days of the internet. But he also talked about obstacles to change. And this is something that he would always talk about in his campaign rallies. So the first obstacle to change for the Filipino, ang sinasabi ni Raul Rojo at that time was yung learned helplessness. We have been disempowered for so long that we often prefer people to be making the decisions for us. And he was the reverse. He actually was firmly convinced that, you know what, we have to take our lives and take full control of them. We cannot let our leaders be the ones deciding for us. Number 2, he talked about the authoritarian temptation that fed that learned helplessness fed into. Unfortunately, if you go by the last 6 years, we've given in to the temptation. It's not only a risk that people like him was warning the Filipinos about. It's something that I guess more recent history has proven true, and that if we're not careful, we would continue to be under. And then the third one was colonial politics. So colonial politics that still looked at, that whole conversation around vote buying, around wala namang mangyayari sa buhay ko na parang kahit sino pa ang presidente, ganito pa rin kami. And I think that's really the result of the colonial experience for many of us. And I guess from that worldview, I want to talk about, so ito yung document niya. So again, I'm not sure if it's available online. I would be curious if it were. Pero syempre po, dahil I was campaigning for hindi kopya ako, and I felt that, it's a good way, it's a good takeoff point. So, in the context of this document, what would be, I think, the lessons I've learned, particularly on the challenges and the opportunities for citizen engagement online? So, the first one, and I think what I've learned is globalization no longer comes just from the top. The truly meaningful and the truly effective movement of goods, ideas, people, and resources really comes from the ground. The reason why social media and the internet has become as powerful as it is it's no longer just the West. It's not just old white men living in the US or Western Europe that are calling the shots. So I think globalization, however way you feel about it, has changed. And the way it will continue to evolve, you can even argue that because of what's happening to Russia and Ukraine, because of what's happened because of the pandemic, there are counter forces. Diba? Parang, is it really such a good idea to let everything loose, move freely without protection for the most vulnerable? So I think that's a conversation that we're continuing to have. The second one, si Rocco would talk about the power of the women and the youth. He was called the honorary woman, and he was very proud of it. But now that conversation is a much broader conversation on inclusion, on diversity. And I think that's an important area for citizen engagement if you want to be truly effective online. And if you go by all of the activities that are happening now, not just the ones that are partisan, political, or campaign in nature, the most effective engagements that you see online are the ones that recognize the diversity of the population, the audiences that you would like to engage. The next one is, no time now he was writing it, we were all very excited about the knowledge society. He had this story na parang, you know what, of all of the goods, of all of the types of resources that we can use to improve the lives of the Filipino, only knowledge is the type of resource that is not diminished when shared. Hindi nababawasan yung liwanag ng kandila mo kapag sinindihan mo yung kandila ng iba. So, and while that was, I guess, now still a hopeful, optimistic view, we've realized that, knowledge can be used for very nefarious purposes. Diba? In the hands of the wrong people or people who want to take advantage and apply it for less than savory purposes, it can really be used for ill. And that's why we need to be able to transition, I think, from knowledge to wisdom, from wisdom to, I would argue, compassion. I would argue justice. So, and now let me share with you more specifics. So sorry, I just wanted more a grounding kasi before I go into the more specific lessons learned. So, what does this tell me and what has my own experience shown me in terms of best practices, challenges, and opportunities in engaging online? So number one is, we see and we now live in a world where more direct action is possible through technology. And it's not just in political. For example, you may not be aware, but the Philippines was one of the first, and if not the first, to actually use the unified Twitter hashtag system for disaster response. So every time, naalala nyo nung nag-ondoy, so many reports were coming in through Twitter. Kailangan ng tulong, nag-offer ng tulong, na-stranded sa bubong, kailangan ng pagkain, hindi mahanap yung kamag-anak. It was all disorganized. And then I do not know where or how, but the Filipinos started using, hashtag RescuePH kapag kailangan niyo po ng tulong. Hashtag ReliefPH kapag kapag kailangan mo ng rescue. Kapag kailangan mo ng tubig, ng pagkain, relief.ph. And then we started organizing around hashtags. So disaster response is a fantastic area where citizens' online engagement has actually improved our country for the better. So di ba naaalala, dati pa parang sasabihin, huwag niyong gamitin yung hashtag na yan kapag ang nire-report niyo ito dahil kasi yan yung binabantayan ng mga first responders. Kapag kailangan niyo po, so kapag rescue dahil nasa bubong or nakakapit sa puno at baha pa, ito yung gamitin na hashtag. That was a fantastic use case for really, really positive citizen engagement. There are also citizen science use cases. So for example, sa Pilipinas, dahil nga pag may sumasabog na bulkan or pag mayroong damage na bagyo, you actually can use online technology to be able to contribute to the scientific process. You contribute, for example, Project NOAA, that has now been housed at the University of the Philippines. Project NOAA is a fantastic use case of citizen science using technology. Without online, NOAA will not be possible. So yung nababaha ni na Professor Mike, all of that, those that monitor adverse weather events, that would not have been possible without technology. In my own experience, so we at Ticket to Me, when the pandemic first hit, March of 2020, March 15, I was talking to friends from Kaya Natin. Some of them are actually fellows of the Asia Society itself. We repurposed our ticketing system. Yung system po kasi namin, nagbibenta kami ng tickets sa plays, sa concerts, sa mga shows, ganyan. Pero we needed a way to quickly raise money for PPEs and food, particularly for the frontliners that all of a sudden did not have enough PPEs, did not have food, did not have means to go to their hospitals or centers. So we were one of the first to mobilize. So instead of using the system to buy tickets, Ticket to Me in partnership with Kaya Natin and a government office, we were able to raise a combined 20 million pesos for PPEs and food just in the first few months. And we were one of the largest platforms for raising funds for that. So it would not have been possible without technology. Over time, we were able to raise money for quarantine facilities. We were able to raise money for film workers affected that lost their jobs because of the pandemic. We were able to raise money for theater workers and performers that did not have income during the pandemic. So again, more ways of direct action through technology. The second opportunity in my view is voices and perspectives now come from everywhere. So for me, the rise of I'm a big K-pop fan. I might not look it. I might not look it, but I am a fan of K-pop. I'm a fan of K-drama. But all of these cultural phenomena would not have been possible without technology. And what this contributes to is a diversity in perspective, a diversity in looking at things, a diversity in the way we analyze and look at ourselves. At the height of the pandemic, I was very depressed because I was running a company that was supposed to make money from live events and we had none. At that time, for those of you who might be interested in this very, very niche subsegment of Pinoy culture, there was a huge boys' love phenomenon that happened in 2000. Came from Japan. Boys' love is a rebellious subgenre of fiction in Japan, written by women, but featuring two boys who fall in love. Started in Japan, spread to Southeast Asia. And then by the time that it hit the Philippines, because we were locked down, so a lot of the shows were really doing well. So we produced content in 2020. We produced a show It was not the best, but today we now count maybe around 10 million views for the series. It was called Voice Lockdown. We're doing a second season for it. If you're interested, you can still watch it on our YouTube channel. But what does this tell us? Now, no one has a monopoly of the conversation. And in fact, more recently, we worked with YouthLed and YouthLed for ICLI. We did the Southeast Asia's first microfilm festival. Sobrang ikli lang po ng mga films. 30 seconds, 2 minutes, 20 seconds. Yung pinakamahaba, 5 minutes. We just had the young female filmmakers swept the awards. Pero ang gaganda po ng show, you can watch it on Rappler or you can watch it on the Ticket to Me YouTube page. But the idea again is no one now can prevent you from speaking out. Diba? No one now can prevent you from speaking out, and certainly, whether or not your voice or your opinion gets heard is no longer due to the absence of platforms. There are platforms, and you will be able to get your message across. Now, whether or not it reaches a small segment or a big segment is really up to, and I guess depends on the quality of the message that you will deliver. Okay? And then, I guess this is another source of happiness for me. I think we're learning how to use knowledge better. When Cambridge Analytica first came into public consciousness, parang it was an evil that we had no control over. And while many countries in the world continue to face problems because of coordinated, inauthentic information, fake news and trolls that sort of try to manipulate conversations and try to manipulate frames of mind, I think we are learning. The fact now that you see people fighting back, that you now see madaling nare-reveal kapag troll behavior dahil pare-pareho yung message, tas na-expose yung lines. When you see all of these patterns that are now emerging, at the very least, regardless of how effective the response is, the fact that we can now begin to identify when we are being manipulated, or when there are attempts at manipulation, I think for me is a source of hope. So again, what are the main challenges? The main challenges are, I think, the same challenges that we faced for a very long time. Diba? And if you go by the authoritarian temptation, our learned helplessness, wala tayong magagawa, and our laziness to submit, our laziness or aversion to more active politics, to more responsible citizenship, and then yung, sige na, kaya yan. Buboto ko, tapos kakalimutan ko na may obligasyon pala ako na pagkatapos bumoto, kailangan ko bantayan yung mga binoto ko. Those are still the challenges, but now, online technology platforms are able to help us do that in ways that did not exist when Rocco was first writing his treatise. I'd like to close by sharing you another Rocco story. So, again, I don't mean it for it to be political. I am no longer affiliated with the political party of my former boss, but he remains an inspiration, and I think his stories and his life will continue to be an inspiration, at least for some. May kukwento po ako sa inyo na nung one of the debates for president noong 1998, it's history, so alam naman natin na ang nanalo si Erap. Erap was the dominant candidate of that era. Parang everything we did. It didn't help that there was no strong enough contender. Rocco was a relative new person in the national arena. The other major contender was then Speaker Jose de Venecia. Okay. So, after one debate po, nakapila kami sa Wendy's sa Quezon Avenue. Yung Crossings National Bookstore na ngayon. Dati po, maliit lang yung National Bookstore, one floor, tapos may Wendy's sa harapan. Nakapila po kami, si Senator Rocco, tapos yung youth volunteers na. Tapos nagkukwento lang po kami, so we were happy kami dahil he did well in the debate. Sabi ko bigla, ako po yung presidente ng Youth Arm, ng Rocco for President. Sabi ko kay sir, alam niyo sir, pag nanalo si Era, magmamigrate ako paalis ng Pilipinas. Okay? So, ang saya-saya namin, tapos bigla siyang naging seryoso. Kasi in front of the youth volunteers that I helped recruit and that I was training, he turned serious, looked at me, and said, Darwin, if Era wins, isn't that all the more reason for you to stay here and fight? Sobra akong napahiya. I mean, it was, hindi ako na-offend, pero nahiya ako na it took someone who was then in his late 50s, maybe even early 60s, to remind a 19-year-old to stay idealistic during a pivotal moment in history. So, and I think that's the reminder that I always carry with me. However, you do what you can. You fight as hard as you can, but you never give up on the country. You never give up. No matter what the stakes say, no matter what the surveys say, no matter what the grown-ups say, you don't give up on the country. So maraming salamat po. Again, thank you very much to the Asian Society, PPCRV,
Thank you, Attorney Darwin. I'm sure maraming tayong mga questions from Facebook and for our live audience. Pero bago po namin paunlakan ng ating Q&A, inaanyayahan po ang lahat para sa isang 5-minute break para makapag-refresh tayo ng ideas, stretching. Meron po tayong mga snacks. Punta lang po kayo sa registration area. Unfortunately, hindi po pwedeng kumain dito sa loob ng venue. So, sa labas po tayo. Maraming salamat po. At sa mga nanonood ng Facebook Live natin, please leave out your insights and comments and we will read them and shout out later. Thank you, everyone.
Asia 21, I would say, is a global family of dreamers and thinkers.
Very diverse individuals who are individually quite accomplished.
People that when you meet them, you get inspired by them.
Incredibly smart, but incredibly humble people.
That are working on some of the most pressing issues in their respective countries.
Who have a common heartbeat about making this world a better place, not just by their own strength and their talents, but by the ability to work together.
I am Asia 21.
Mama Asia Viseka Sangidale
Asia 21.
Asia 21. Ma Asia 21.
我是亚洲20年的一个青年领袖。
私はアジア。
Makikita sa panimula ng 1987 Constitution ang mga katangiang mahalaga sa bawat Pilipino, lalo na sa ating mga lider.
Panatang Makapilipinas.
Panatang Makapilipinas.
Panatang Makapilipinas.
Iboboto ko Makapilipinas. Makabayan sa lupang sinilangan.
Makataot may respeto.
Sa buhay at pamilya.
Siya ay makatuwiran at patas makisama.
Masigasig tumulong makaahon ang bawat isa.
Makatarungan.
Makalingat.
Maalalahanin sa kapwa.
Makakasama ang lahat.
Siya ay di mangiiwan.
Makapagtataguyod ng kabutihang panlahat. Siya ay makapatas.
Siya ay makatotoo.
Siya ay may malinaw na pananaw para sa makabagong tuwas.
Higit sa lahat, siya ay makadiyos.
Kaya't ayaw niya ng karahasan.
Siya'y makakapayapaan.
Iboboto ko isang taong makakalayaan.
Isang leader na makakaligtasan.
Isang Pilipinong makabuluhan at matino ang pamumuhay.
Sa isip, sa salita, at sa gawa. Gabayan ang Pilipinong bumoto ng responsable. Yan naman ang aming panata sa PPCRV.
Sa pagpili ng liderato, laging tatandaan, dapat nasa kanya lahat ng katangian na makapilipinas, makapilipinas, na makapilipinas. Iboto ang makapilipinas, na makapilipinas. Taong may respeto sa buhay at pamilya, makabuluhan at matino ang pamumuhay. Siya yung makapagtataguyod ng kabutihang panlahat, di mangiiwan, makakasama ang lahat. Makatotoo, hindi sinungaling, makalingat, maalalahanin, makatarungan, Ikasan, iaalay ang buhay para sa bayan. Sa pagpili ng liderato, laging tatandaan, maganda sa kanya lahat ng katangian na makapilipinas, na makapilipinas, na makapilipinas. Iboto ang makapilipinas. Yeah. Makakalayan, ito'y ipaglalaban. Makakapayapaan, ayaw ng karahasan. Makabatas at makabayan, masigasig tumulong, makaahon ang bawat isa. Malinaw ang pananaw sa makabagong bukas. Makatwiran at patas makisama, at higit sa lahat, makadiyos siya dapat. Sa pagpili ng liderato, laging tatandaan, dapat nasa kanya lahat ng katangian ng makapilipinas, makapilipinas, makapilipinas. Iboto ang makapilipinas, makapilipinas.
Gabayan ang Pilipinong bumoto ng responsable. Yan naman ang aming panata sa PPCRV.
Asia 21, I would say, is a global family of dreamers and thinkers.
Very diverse individuals who are individually quite accomplished.
People that when you meet them, you get inspired by them.
Incredibly smart, but incredibly humble people.
That are working on some of the most pressing issues in their respective countries.
Who have a common heartbeat about making this world a better place, not just by their own strength and their talents, but by the ability to work together.
I am Asia 21.
Mama Asia Viseka Sangdane Tata.
Asia 21.
Asia 21.
Ma Asia 21.
我是亚洲阿亚本源的青年领袖。
私はアジア。
Makikita sa panimula ng 1987 Constitution ang mga katangiang mahalaga sa bawat Pilipino, lalo na sa ating mga leader.
Panatang Makapilipinas.
Panatang Makapilipinas.
Panatang Makapilipinas.
Iboboto ko Makapilipinas. Makabayan sa lupang sinilangan.
Makataot may respeto.
Sa buhay at pamilya.
Siya ay makatuwiran at patas makisama.
Masigasig tumulong makaahon ang bawat isa.
Makatarungan.
Makalingat.
Maalalahanin sa kapwa.
Makakasama ang lahat.
Siya ay di mang iiwan.
Makapagtataguyod ng kabutihang panlahat.
Siya ay makabatas. Siya ay makatotoo.
Siya ay may malinaw na pananaw para sa makabagong bukas.
Higit sa lahat, siya ay makadiyos.
Kaya't ayaw niya ng karahasan.
Siya'y makakapayapaan.
Iboboto ko isang taong makakalayaan.
Isang leader na makakaligtasan.
Isang Pilipinong makabuluhan at matino ang pamumuhay.
Sa isip, sa salita, at sa gawa. Gabayan ang Pilipinong bumoto ng responsable. Yan naman ang aming panata sa PPCRV.
Okay, sige. I'm sure lahat ay nakapagpahinga na or snacks or rested well. Maybe ask everyone lang na ng mga nasa gilid kung okay lang umupo tayo sa may center para makakarinig tayo for our Q&A po. Okay. Before we proceed to the Q&A, we invited some youth leaders to share their insights on the presentations of our three resource speakers for today. To start, may we invite our Leadership and Democracy Fellow, Angela Encomienda. She is an AD Sociology student in Ateneo de Manila University, and she is presently working on initiatives centered on conservation efforts, urban development, and governance. She co-founded the Initiative PH, a youth-led organization focused on synergizing people's development initiatives. She is a strong believer of the power of knowledge and partnering in community development. She is also one of the fellows of the Leadership and Democracy Fellowship Program of YouthLed PH and is the National Youth Convener of Youth Vote Philippines. May we call on Angela Encomienda. Doon na lang daw siya, para maiba ang ating switch ng focus. Hello po sa lahat and maraming salamat po sa ating mga speakers and syempre po sa mga participants natin today. Siguro po I want to start with what Dr. Elena said kanina. Dr. Elena calls this a landmark election. And I think indeed this is true, no? Especially for the youth which now comprises, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, over 52% of our registered voters. Actually, siguro short kwento na rin. For the first time since 2008-2009, Youth Vote Philippines doesn't have to extend itself so much to directly oversee youth groups all over the country. Why is this? Kasi po sobrang dami ng grassroots youth movements mobilizing in their own areas. It speaks for itself. Ngayon ang YVP, instead of itong direct oversight, we've shifted to joining and building coalitions and ensuring that these movements actually mobilize beyond campaigning and beyond casting the vote. In this mission, Ms. Myla reminds us to go outside of our echo chambers, especially ngayon in the digital space that most of us young people navigate. So thank you po for the reminder to speak in the language of the masses and to battle disinformation. Kasi po sometimes, even with our good intentions, we may fail to live out the democracy that we so vehemently advocate for. Minsan po dinidismiss natin ang ating lesser-known candidates na nanggagaling sa mga marginalized sectors. Meron pang nag-file ng lawsuits, ganyan, against those who might not share our opinions. And meron din po tayong pinaprevent din po natin ang sarili natin, pati ang ibang tao, from criticizing our own candidates. We forget that the process matters just as much as the outcome. Nakakalimutan natin ang mga tao rin ito, ang mga kasama natin. Mga taong may isyong hinaharap, may pinapangarap para sa sarili, para sa kanilang mga pamilya, at para sa bansa. Mga tao na deserve na mapakinggan, hindi lang para mahamig natin sila, kundi para maging bahagi sila ng tunay na pagsasanay ng demokrasya. And this is what Ms. Ching highlights, especially in her discussion of youth well-being and aspirations. Our people, our young people, we have brains and hearts. Hindi bobotante, hindi walang takip. To dismiss our people as such is to do a disservice to our nation. And this brings us to the real question. Para kanino nga ba tayo bumoboto? Hindi sana para sa kandidato, kundi para sa atin. Hindi sana para sa personalidad, kundi para sa mga taong talagang humaharap sa mga pinakamabigat na issue sa bansa natin. Sir Darwin's mention of learned helplessness, authoritarian temptation, and colonial politics really struck me at this point. Siguro napaisip ako, maybe this is caused by or exacerbated by the way that we gather resources para sa mga mobilization natin, the way that we campaign for personalities, and the way we train our youth leaders, pati yun. It's these same things that put the burden of making the world a better place on our young people. Laging nasasabihan, sila naman yung techie, sila naman yung may energy na pumunta sa mga area. Sila na lang, they are the hope of our nation. Di pa Jose Rizal pa. Pero ganun ba talaga dapat? We may have forgotten that we are not and should not be fully dependent on our candidates, just as we should not be fully dependent on our young people. Ang dami mong narinig kanina sa mga talk na nag-valorize ng ating young people, ang ating young volunteers, ang ating young leaders. And hindi ang galing nga talaga. At tayong mga resources na kakapagbigay sa ating young people ng funds, pagpapacapacity building, ganyan. But maybe we forgotten that it's not just them. It has to be us, together. Siguro po to end this reaction, to end this statement, I want to call on everybody here, young and young at heart, to remember our power. Kasi po, kapag nagawa natin ito, tayo ang panalo. Salamat po. Thank you, Angel. Very powerful po yung message niya na hindi lang naman youth, sana po yung mga nakatatanda, mas nakababata, Sama-sama po tayong lumaban, sama-sama po tayong tumayo. Ayan. Maraming salamat po. Up next naman po, we invited another youth leader himself. He has 15 years of extensive experience working in both the public and private sectors. He served in several government positions as the head executive assistant of COMELEC, as the executive assistant to the chairperson of the Commission on Human Rights. Prior to his government works, he was the program manager and political organizing officer of the Ateneo School of Government and an associate director of Simbahan ng Lingkod. He also obtained his master's degree in political science, major in global politics from the Ateneo de Manila University. Ngayon naman po, siya po ang current elections oversight and reform specialist ng Participate under the Ateneo School of Government. May we call on Jess Paul Pastor.
Maraming salamat sa pagkakataon ito na pagbahagi din. Kinakikita ko kanina yung mga presentation, marami akong nag-iisip na. So I would like to vote wisely. We need to vote for the right people into public office on May 9. And we often hear these lines nowadays. Yes, I agree that this is very important. I also agree that the 2020 presidential local elections present a major opportunity to accept accountability and elect the right, quote-unquote, right leaders. While we continue to constructively engage our fellow voters to help and support their candidates, let's remember that it might be more helpful at this point to start making people realize that we are the true source of power, because it is only through an empowered citizenry that we can truly have meaningful elections. However, we should not in any way view our elections as a panacea or a magic pill that will make all our problems go away. Voting alone is not and will never be enough. Anchoring our hopes alone on political figures or candidates will certainly lead us to frustrations that will further entrench the political disillusionment and disengagement in our country. Besides, have we ever arrived at any consensus on who is, quote-unquote, a right person to vote for? I hope that in our lifetime, we will be able to see and experience a society where the majority of voters, majority of non-voters also, will likewise publicly see what we're willing to commit and to do to help reform our institutions, aside from stopping and pronouncing who we are going to vote for in election. If we are truly committed to building and moving our nation forward, I hope we accept the fact that this entails active involvement and commitment from all of us, especially after elections. Remember, the candidate that we support, whoever that will be, is just one side of the equation. Whoever wins after the election, there is a greater need to sustain our engagement and have an active, meaningful, and effective citizen participation. There is no shortcut. For our democracy to be truly effective and functional, it requires that the electorate are well-informed and discerning, having moderate beliefs, and are predisposed to listen and understand the millions of voices in our society. A misinformed, disinformed, and undiscerning electorate will be easy to manipulate by political leaders. Voters who are not equipped with the right information will vote along family lines, regionalistic tendencies, or narrow bases rather than in pursuit of the general welfare based on truthful information. When these things happen, it will result to a dysfunctional democracy. Of course, we have witnessed as well the emergence of a relatively new species of media practitioners, the online trolls, paid or otherwise. The role of social media in spreading information is unparalleled, especially with the overwhelming number of new voters. We have to help each other in fighting the spread of lies, not only online, but also offline. Information is a vector for change, and people can truly have a say in their own future in an environment where truth is affirmed where respect for rights is assured and credible information are accessible. We must fight lies with truth, and democratizing access to information is essential in this fight. And if people are to play a part in the decisions that affect their lives. I know a lot of people, especially the youth, are allergic to politics in general. I think the meme which says, mga kaibigan mo na kinain ng eleksyon ng politika, reflects that kind of sentiment. The usual thing that we hear is that it is a waste of time getting involved in politics because all politicians are corrupt anyway. So it's a sentiment. We have that. But I hope let's all remember this. Your government, our government, your politics, our politics are what you need to them. What is at stake next year is our future, your future, and it is not a cliche. It is the truth that we have to face, that the youth will have to face. For people even too young to vote for this year, you will be affected with the election results as others because we will elect the leadership of our country for the next 6 years. That will be the government that will decide what policies on employment will be, what industries will be prioritized by the time we enter the workforce. So if you think that this election does not concern me, I'm sorry to say, but I think it is important that you accept the fact that it has everything to do with you. Before 40 days before the elections, you still have a lot to do as much as you have a lot to learn. You similarly have to remember that the automation side of the elections is just one aspect of the resource that needs to be mobilized for elections to be credible. The even more important resource are our people. And I think ito nga, yung maraming election group, watchdogs group are also having difficulty recruiting volunteers. But it's important that we have to find ways to support these various efforts to watch over our electoral process. There are many ways we can translate our state in elections in more complete investments in our democracy. Whether you're an individual or a group, conducting voter segregation, influencing your friends or family to vote for the right, candidate, doing fact-checking, businesses or enterprises sharing resources to make electoral processes more comfortable and convenient, or watchdogs preparing for the election monitoring. All these engagements are important in our elections and in strengthening our democracy. In closing, it is my hope that the youth will have an inspiring story to tell when the time comes that our children or your children will ask us, what did you do in your time to address the issues of our country that faces, particularly in the proliferation of disinformation in the lives? We are only young ones. You are only young ones. That's all we need now.
Thank you, Jess. Tama po na hindi natatapos sa elections ang ating movement. And I hope we can all aspire to continue building movements for meaningful and genuine political participation. Hindi lang ng kabataan, kundi ng pamilya, ng barangay, ng community, at tayo-tayo po mismo. Now we will proceed to the question and answer session. To moderate the session, we have invited Mr. Robbie Alampay, anchor of The Chief and the Big Story at One News Signal TV, the founder and chairman of Huma Public Productions, and the former editor-in-chief of Business World. Robbie?
Maraming salamat po. Galing Darwin, it's good to be back at the university. Hindi ako eksapag. Mas malapit naman sa loob ng Paris thank you for having us. It's an honor, pleasure to always come here. Tawagin ko si Ching. Ching, Darwin, and I think Maya is no longer here. Attorney Van is here to still represent the PPCRV. We don't have much time left. I think we have about 30 minutes. It will take a few minutes to probably get it all coming. But we'll have a conversation. If we have time, we'll bring in if anybody wants to speak or ask. But Ching, I wanted to start with something. Why not? Sige, basta mamaya kayo magtatawag sa Ching. Hindi, pero I wanted to ask you something very interesting that you said. Yung sa senior mo, so we're going to talk about the two levels. Voting, the upcoming elections, and something that all of us kept repeating, including the youth. This is not about the elections alone. This is about our stake in our society and the issues that will still be there, to continue to confront us and to challenge us and maybe many times frustrate us. Diba? But, Ching, I wanted to start with elections muna. Sinabi niyo, your survey shows that actually the most influential force for voters is family. Pero what din yung pamilya? So I'm curious. Sino sa family? Is it the mother? Is it the parents? Is it these kids? Is it the youth? Is it lolo, lola? Is it my crazy tita and tita on Viber? Sino ang pinakang influential within family?
So we were also very surprised with the results. And actually, family, tapos but it's really families that the young people live with. So if it's grandparents, it's grandparents. If it's parents, it's parents. And then, so I was also sharing. It also matters. How involved they are. Because when we went around, so we've been going around the past 3-4 weeks, visiting different provinces and meeting with different leaders. And because we wanted to confirm the data, confirm the data. But it's different when you're talking to youth leaders who are involved, because when you ask them the same question, they said that actually in our families, we are youth, because I have a different candidate and my parents have a different candidate. So how do you solve it? And so they try to convince, and some naman, and some naman, their guardians or their respective decision. But there is that difference. There are some youth who are influenced by, there is family group, and some will also say, meron family group. Pero, student leaders, they're very, also very protective of their vote and of their opinion, and they're willing to help them. So that's
to clarify ko, no? So the survey specifically surveyed you, or is this a national survey?
National survey. So this is 4,900 youth representing different regions, major cities. Majority ng respondents namin, Class D. So that's 81% of our respondents were Class D, representing the largest population.
Okay, because I just want to follow this down the rabbit hole, maybe Darwin and, Van, you may also have insights here. Kung ang youth makikinig sa family, however you define family, where does family get their information?
Well, ako ngayon, particularly during the pandemic, not an expert, pero at least from the anecdotal experience that I have, nagbago na yung sources, for sure. Dati kasi, kahit ako, my own behavior, dati hindi ako, again, this is my age, kailangan may dyaryo ako na tulong. Pag umaga, magkakapita. I don't even remember the last time that I physically touched a printed newspaper. And I think, if only for that, the kind of news or information that we receive, and I guess the depth of information that we receive. Dahil kasi, pag nagpalit yung pinanggagalingan ng informasyon mo, dahil kasi sa dyaryo, mahaba, di ba? Pwede mong basahin yung column, pwede mong basahin yung buong article. So yung sino man yung nagsulat mo, pati yung editor na nagpalabas, lahat ng gusto nilang sabihin, makatanggap ko pag binasa ko yung article. Ngayon, online, if I'm reading a Twitter, if I'm seeing a tweet, if if I like the content, I'm guilty of this, I don't even have to read the article, I can retweet it right away. Like, I want other people to read it. Saka ko na lang babasahin. So, I think, depende. So, to your question, Robby, depende kasi siguro kung sa sitwasyon ng pamilya. Kung ano kalagayan sa buhay, ano yung edad ng mga miyembro ng pamilya. I think malaking epekto yun. Pero I think what cannot be excluded is right now, online is a big driver of information. Because like Karina and recently in Maya, I've always known that it's about honesty, as far as PPCRV is concerned, about honesty, accurate, transparency. But I take from it another word here that people may not even meaningful. Meaningful. Everything else can be quite objective. Is it transparent? That can be there can be indicators for that. Is it honest? Is it fake? That can be. What does meaningful mean? Particularly, as pointed out even by our young people, in an age of misinformation and disinformation, and I'm speaking from experience also, diba? Yung mga Viber groups, mga messenger groups, ma-realize ko, sinawag ko pala itong classmate ko sa high school na ito. Diba? Para makita, ay, si Tito pa ko video. So, how do we, what's the measurement for meaningful?
Thank you, Sir Robin. I'll take that as a jump-off point to answer your earlier question about family. And I'll answer that by sharing an anecdote there. Finally, like, I think 3 days ago, I was with a client of mine. She's 75 years old. And the usual, after nung business transaction, you coffee together, tapos mamaya actually kami pinag-uusapan. And then I stopped that.
Tayo na mga abogado yan. Life pro tip. Pagka abogado, inaya kayo magkape, tigil niyo muna yung metro.
You make sure sabihin nyo, Tony, flat down na to. Ay, no, flat down pala. So, Joseph was 75 years old. She was very passionate about her candidate. Sinasabi niya, ito talaga kasi kilala niya yung ganyan, kilala na. Kasi mo ba yung mga kalaban niya? Wala nang alam niya kung ano yung sasakit. Now the thing is, she's 75 years old, so medyo hirap na siyang mag-drive. Ang nagda-drive sa kanya was her 18-year-old granddaughter. So kasama namin siya nagkakapit. Sabi kong lola, yung bayan ko, ewan ko nga ba dito sa apo ko, first time boboto ito daw yung boboto niya. Bakit yung kaiba? So ako, of course, I'm supposed to be non-partisan. From PPCRV. So, nag-moderate na lang ako. So, I talked to the 18-year-old na sabi ko, bakit ba yan yung boboto? Sabi ng lola mo, kung ano-ano lang yung sinasabi niya. Kasi attorney, si lola, pinapanood naman niya TikTok. Yung mga 30-second video. Panoorin mo yan 2 minutes, ayaw na Yung mga 30 seconds lang, attorney. Sige nga, patingin ako. Ma'am, patingin nga ako ng video. Ito, tignan mo, diba? Nagsasabi niya. Tapos sabi ko dun sa granddaughter, anong mali dito? Attorney, obvious naman po na edited, etc. Kaya pakita ko nga po sa kanya, ito po yung kabuuan ng speech. Ngayon, di lola, medyo kumalma, hindi ko alam, basta nakikita ko, yun. Again, mind you, this is not dito, I wasn't talking to a class B client. This is a well-known family actually. So sabi niya, hindi pa lang hindi napapanood ko hindi nakikita ko. Sabi nga ni Sir Darwin, pati siya mismo wala nang time to read newspapers, watch the news. Talagang kung ano yung bukas ng Facebook, first thing you see, yun na yun And kagandahan sa Facebook, kung ano mo naman nakita, you click it, bukas yung ulit yung makikita mo, yung paulit-ulit yung makikita mo. So, nagtapos kami, sabi niya, sige na nga, babalato ko na sa'yo. Sabi niya sa akin, sige na, babalato. I guess, yun yung meaningful. Meaningful, I'm not sure what it's supposed to be meaning for, but at least for that particular incident, I think yun yung sabi ng meaningful. Bakit ka bumoboto? You're 75 years old, malakas pa naman siya, but she realizes na, and after this election daw, she's migrating to the US naman. So sabi niya, sige, malaki ka na sa'yo.
Balato ka masaya. Ano yung reason yung balato ko na? Re-restituin ko na lang sila? Or well, ang sabi niya, iboboto daw niya. Okay. Tapos ang humirit pa yung granddaughter. Sige Lola, pero sabihan mo rin si Lolo. So, I guess yung meaningful. And to answer the first question, saan ba nanggagaling yung information ng family? Yun nga, mukhang online talaga. Actually, ang takeaway ko, si Lola nag-TikTok na. Ewan ko lang kung siya mismo nag-TikTok, pero meron siyang TikTok.
I'm glad that she said that to her grandmother because when we saw the results, we said that then the young people have the opportunity to become the influencers in their families. So that we just have to.
Yeah, but there's a point to why I said take away ko si Lola and TikTok. Because you also know that it's the youth na nag-TikTok. It's also anecdotally then. Are the youth getting the information?
Yeah, so we have this information, so we teach the youth that you have to read before you share. Darwin, you're gonna be read about yeah, tapos and then to verify before, right? And when we were talking to young people, it's funny because sometimes it's the older generation who doesn't read and who is enamored by all of these YouTube.
Data backs up what Darwin spoke for his generation. It's the elders who share really poor quality information before reading. I mean, before reading.
So I'm more worried. I'm less worried about the youth, but more worried about the older people.
Yeah. And I think, siguro just to add to the conversation, right? I've always been convinced that you will trust information from your tribe. Diba? Parang, there are studies that show in certain ways we're still very primal. Diba? Parang, as social animals, we're parang hardwired to listen. Kasi diba, nung nakatira pa tayo sa kuweba, kapag mayroong predator, ang papakinggan mo miyembro ng tribe mo to warn you against danger, or tell you where to find food, or to take shelter if there are storms or floods. So, baka hanggang ngayon, ganun pa rin, and I think you will listen to people who consider if what we're reading about, not just TikTok, but social media in general, it's not right. Okay, it's not a tribe. We're in a bubble, defined not by people around us, but by algorithms. So that's what I mean. You're the taking here. Talk about that. I mean, are we paranoid? Is that true? Kasi particularly with TikTok, you don't even need to follow. Right? Yes, it's machine learning feeding you something, or you want more. Parang tribes are now artificially created for us. Parang yes, but it's not being created for us by a shared culture or shared values. No, it's being by your preferences, by your weaknesses, and your conceit. Correct. So ito pa, that's the other thing that I want to say. Maybe say, sobrang unimaginable the power of content that you like and that content you consume over other parts of your life. So for example, if you're a fan of this particular artist or this particular musician or this particular genre of books, the things that you like in the platforms, and then eventually, because of that algorithm, shape what you are shown. And then before you know it, yun nga, parang hindi mo alam na talagang that bubble or that echo chamber affects you in more ways than just the politics that you see when you're ganito kulay now. Yeah, but when we talk about the young generation, informed, responsible, open wise, citizens who know how to do. My word for it is, beyond fact-checking, always skeptical about how far that can go, but I think ultimately my personal goal is for information resilience, so that it's from within, you know how to ignore, look for and decide for yourself. You also have to have some authority, resources that you can use that one. How do we create an information resilient society? Because we know that that's going to be crucial not just for the exam election. It's going to be crucial for, let's face it, for government that can be given to gaslighting, government that can be given to realizing the power of this information, that can normalize the very word of rebellion. Diba? But, how do you create information is really decided?
Well, like everything else, it has to start as a family. And so PPCRV, that's always the focus. We mentioned about Bible groups. I'm sure everyone here is a member of whether whether you like it or not, a family Bible group. For some reason, biglang inad ka ng mga titas mo, mga titos mo. And sa atin, we would like to think, we trust na the youth is more especially tayo mas nakakawang turbulence. We are more open to information, and we are trusted with the fact na tayo mga alaga pa ng information na babantayan natin. And mostly nangyayari sa Viber group, Messenger group, WhatsApp group, na family groups natin. Meron dyan isa, dalawa, or tatlong tita na would share fake news, would believe something na hindi naman credible talaga. So, imbes na mainis, siguro imbes na ignore your family members sa group, it's best na you actually correct them. Of course, in a very respectful manner. At the very least, that will cause you just sow some seeds of doubt sa kanila. Just to double check kung ano itong mga information.
So I think it's discipline discernment, and just back to values. Kasi when we talk about information resiliency, and not just for the elections, but some stuff for everyday, the everyday information that you consume. And also, for the landscape, although we're very non-confrontational, so sometimes pag mali ayaw na, pag tinalik kasi pag-aaway na kayo, right? But we do have to take action, and we do have to clarify when there's a need to clarify, and we should not be afraid to do that.
Ako, I would add siguro digital literacy, and we need to make sure that the much needed reforms in our education system really happen, because marami tayong problema ngayon na po pwedeng bigyan talaga sa all internal. Yes. Ako lang po rin. But even in our understanding of history, di ba? Ano ba talaga yung nangyari sa atin before you can even make an informed opinion of where we need to go or how to fix the problems that we have as a country. Kailangan tama yung understanding mo of what went wrong, di ba? Ano ba yung naging problema? So, that applies to the digital realm, the citizenship realm. So, I think that's something that squarely our young people, our young leaders here have a direct stake in. We need to fix or keep fixing our education system. Unfortunately, it's a never-ending struggle. So, ganyan na nung nasa school kami ngayon na shape, yan na yung sinisigaw namin. Hanggang ngayon, yun pa rin ang sisigaw natin because you really need to you mentioned citizenship. I want to go to another level because I survey saying. I was struck by that slide. It said, ano ba ibig sabihin ng democracy? And it struck me that freedom was actually quite low, number 5 or number 6, and then very high is governance, and then equality, norms and procedures, which is really, wow, quite fascinating for people to put their finger on that, right? Because speaking of our generation, obviously in 1985, 1986, people power, when we say we fought for democracy and human rights, that stood for itself. Right? And I got reminded of an editorial written by the Free Press, where this is around the time they were getting the solution. People were getting the solution to the post-exam. And one reflection of that editorial said, we fought for democracy and human rights, which is good. The problem is we never asked the next question, which is democracy and human rights for what?
10 minutes.
Yeah. And I think that's a particular, and your survey is quite early, right? The people would actually say, the first thing they would think of when it comes to democracy, it's not freedom.
It's really very interesting, especially when you look at, we can also say that generational, it's been different. Like it was different for our parents' generation, or those who went through, you match the political situation during the time of this particular generation, iba rin yung naging response nila, iba rin yung naging tingin nila sa demokrasya, right? And I think that's also part of the journey that these young people will have to go through. What does democracy really mean to them? And based on our survey, it also differs per region. It's not the same for, so it's their own personal journey of what democracy means. But I think and that's the case. Exactly that, because there's really no, it's not even just our youth, it's even the whole generation. What is democracy really mean for us and for our daily survival and not
Candidates for ay nagdadala ng pansa sa maraming youth, the people who were surrounded kasi and yes, so that's not that they were not big so this to hindi kailangan ng Marcos sa akin yung pag-design ng mga kanila. So maraming naka-camp out, they were parang holding the first family of that time hostage. Hindi dadala kami ng pagkain para dito. Kaya nangyari yung EDSA dose. Diba? Parang I was already in law school. Sabi ko, hindi ko papalagpasin ko dahil kasi I'm too young to make a difference noong 86. Now I'm old enough. Hindi kami umuwi. So, law school, we declared, sabi namin sa teacher namin, hindi kami papasok. And then we stayed in EDSA pretty much the whole 4 or 5 days. Ang problema, the realization after was, mali. Ang hindi mo, pag napalitan yung presidente, tapos na, boxing, maganda na ulit ang buhay. Solved na lahat ng problema niyo. Hindi. Parang we got caught up in the romantic idea of a peaceful transfer of power. That we forgot na, alam nyo, ang mas importante yung ganito, yung eleksyon, babantayan mo pagkatapos ng eleksyon, kahit na anong mangyari sa eleksyon, hindi mo papabayaan yung obligasyon mo sa bansa mo. Diba? Parang nakalimutan namin yun. Because parang, tanggal na si Era, tapos na yung trabaho ko. I can go back to being I will do what I want. Like Chris kami sa daw mo. Diba? So, which is wrong. Which is wrong. And I guess dun sa isang reactor natin, at least for me and for my own circle, I'm not, I know that I have as much responsibility in this. And kaya kami, that's why we're still at it. Even if we're not as young. I think we have a few questions. Right? Please introduce yourself.
Good morning po. Ako po si Jason from UT College of Political Science and Public Administration Student Council. This question po is for our speakers po. Kasama po natin yung mga. Being said po kanina na we're more knowledgeable because we have more access to information and disinformation with the use of social media and the traditional mass media na meron po tayo ngayon. And let's say na our voters are literate on the backgrounds and platforms of our candidates in the mga sa ating election for this year. And nakita naman din po natin na we are all eager to communicate and engage in discussions discussing the anything else related po sa ating nalalaman. But with all that being said po, sabihin po natin na hanggang tumingin po ang masa, ang mga tao po. They're ready to stand and vote for the team. And who is right po to lead our country. There are certain issues or concerns po na meron na tayo with regards to this election ito to the COMELEC itself po. Mainly, number one po is the suspension of COMELEC's partnership with Rappler after the Solicitor General raised to void the said partnership, citing that fact-checking violates freedom of expression under our Constitution. Number two, as Senator, the chairperson of Senate Electoral Reforms Committee claimed a serious security breach in the COMELEC and Smartmatics data that was later on po contested by the NBI and Smartmatics lawyer. Number three po, newly appointed COMELEC commissioners. One being a former lawyer of a running presidential candidate and one being a close lawyer to the father of a running presidential candidate. And lastly po, a disqualification case that was heavily delayed and resulted to a questionable decision. With all that being said po, for us citizens, the youth, how do you think that we still hope or fight po for a fair and clean election on May 9, both online and through NGOs and civil societies po? Yun po, thank you.
Yeah. Dami, no? Pero kami from PPCRV, anong sagot natin? Lumabas po kayo sa election day, bumoto. Yun pa rin po ang sasabihin namin. Bakit? Nandito po kami, PPCRV, like what Ismaila and said earlier. Hindi sa pagmamayabang, but the Board of Trustees of PPCRV is actually composed of the best technical minds in the country. And it's a Smartmatic issue, we have been there on day one, with the source code headed by our chief of PPCRV, Dr. William Yu. And we trust these technical experts. And PPCRV is on your side. Okay. And ingat, kanina yung pinapaliwanag ni Ismaila. Babantayan po yung boto. Hindi po to itong motherhood statement lang na sinasabi ng babantayan yung boto. We really do work on the ground. Okay. Regardless of whoever is in COMELEC, assuming auto, whoever is our contractor for logistics, for the vote counting machines, meron po tayong mga procedures na kayang bantayan ng ating mga technical expert to say na meron bang hacking, meron bang pag-asa na pag bumoto kayo, iba yung binulugan nyo, iba yung bibilangin yung vote counting machine, may papakita nyo, yung transcript nyo. Lahat po yan nababantayan, lahat po yan kayang tignan ng ating mga technical experts sa PPCRV. Yun po yung sinasabi ng mga kailangan kanina. Remember, meron tayong tawag na yung free transmission investigators. Meron pa rin tayo nung pinakamanual na inilalabas. Lahat po yan itatali. Not only do we receive the electronic transmission for our unofficial parallel count. Kasabay po noon, pagtanggap namin ng mga physical election returns, lahat ng volunteers natin sa command center sa UST for the next 10-20 days after the election. Isa-isahin po yan to check. And meanwhile, kasabay po ng meron yung tawag na random manual audit. Nandiyan po yung mga ibang watchdogs like Lente, they do random manual audit. Lahat po ng mga ballot copies sila nag-isa sa isang warehouse. They will choose a number of ballots randomly, check isa-isahin lahat ng mga resibo. Double check kung tama ba ang resibo, tama ba yung bilang ng vote counting machine, tama ba yung transmit, tama ba yung election return. Okay. Now, just to babalikan ko lang po yung issue ng sa smart card. We already made our statement. And ang sinasabi natin, was there a leak? Yes, there was a leak. But the leak na so far, the data that we have only shows na yung mga leak yan are data that's irrelevant to the coming elections. Okay. But ang ibig sabihin ba nun, ipagbabali wala natin? Of course not. We actually call on the authorities, COMELEC and PI to do their duties to conduct an investigation. It's a leak. Okay. But sa ngayon, we say na kampante kami na during the review of the source code, magbabantayan yung vote counting machine. And I was there also personally when we did the sample balloting sa people. So, kumagana naman yung vote counting machine.
Okay. Is there another question?
Hi everyone. Hi, good morning po. I'm Marcus from the Online Institute Forum and the Rotary Global Program Quezon City. And I would like to commend, of course, all of the insights that were made today. Napakaganda po, especially, of course, Mr. Darwin related kay Senator Raul Rocos insights, especially for the 21st century. So I believe as young leaders, napakadami talaga natin pwedeng gawin. And I would like to ask, especially or Sir Darwin and kay Authority. Ano po yung pwedeng gawin ng kabataan, especially during the elections, lalo na of course, PPCRV is doing baka naghahanap sila ng volunteers, then of course, kina Sir baka naghahanap ng engagements para makatulong in watching the elections. Kasi this is the election for us as young leaders, lalo na tayo naman kami naman yung magiging future leaders and future change makers of this country. So how can we be involved first? And second, how can we go out on our echo chambers effectively? Kasi karamihan ba, ang dami nito-trend yung mga hashtags related to campaign, pero iba yung nangyayari on the ground. And usually kasi nagkakaroon din ng misconception na, pag ito yung binoto mo, ganito ka, or pag ganito binoto mo, hindi ka matalino, or ganyan. How do we change that perspective? Kasi I believe that if we go into that mindset na we have prejudice conception already of those people who are voting for this or voting for that, baka hindi na magkaroon ng meaningful citizen engagement. Thank you so much.
Okay. Siguro two things, and I will answer it with Star Wars quotes. So, the first one, siguro dun sa comment kanina on the bad news or the potentially worrying news about comment. Gusto ko lang mag-react. Parang gusto ko yung line ng rebellion sa Article of Hope. Diba? Parang the whole point of us fighting and still caring about the country is that even if the odds are stacked against us, there's all of these entrenched interests. You fight it by hope. I mean, diba? Over 100 years ago, when sina Bonifacio, sina Jacinto was what, 23. We had a population of what, 6 million, 7 million people. And these were the young people that led us, diba? Young and old that led us in the first fought for our people. The second thought is, the way to win this, and this is from another Star Wars movie, Heroes, diba? The way to win this is not fighting against the hate, diba? It's by fighting for, I don't know, the way we're going to win this war, not by fighting what we hate, but rather by saving what we love. So yun, so babalik tayo dun sa connection on meaning, di ba? Para saan ba ito? Para sa mga mahal mo sa buhay. Di ba? Para sa mahal mo yung jowa mo, mahal mo yung asawa mo, boyfriend, girlfriend mo, yung mga anak mo, yung magulang mo. That's how we will win this. That's how we will make the difference. By reminding ourselves, paano kasi madali yung details eh. Pero I think it's harder to remember why we're doing it.
Kaya narinig nyo rin, nabanggit mo rin, PPCRV needs volunteers, not just for counselors, a lot of they need lawyers as well. And I want to bring in, because the thing is telling to bring in Jess.
Jess, you want to share what you're doing and participate?
To answer your question kanina, ano yung pwedeng gawin? Kasi may doubts about the credibility of the electoral process. Yung observation ng former officials are pointed na parang mayroong certain biases. I think yung malang importante dito is still, you have to continue engaging on the institution. For example, if you have credibility that would merit an opposition to the confirmation of these public officials, please do so. Participate at the confirmation hearings sa Commission of Accounts. So there are a lot of means through which we, the people, can still engage institutions and say na, okay, this is what we think and this is based on facts. Please reconsider your decision. Number two, in terms of that narrative naman, na parang I think yung cheating allegations, merong breach of information, etc. I think we should also be very discerning about all these allegations. Kasi at the end of the day, we now live at a time where our information ecosystem is so polluted that we don't know really which ones are credible. So we have to be very discerning. If we go with that kind of thinking, we always doubt the institution without even having any substantial proof, I think we might be falling into the frame that some political camps
we just easily play that card that after elections, you can just say, we were cheated, even if there was no proof. For example, in the 2016 elections, the prevailing narrative was a certain candidate in a national position allegedly was cheated. However, that person failed to prove that he was cheated. A number of times, even recounts na ginawa niya, natalo pa siya. Mas lalo pang dagdagan yung boto ng kalaban. So, I think yung importante dito na we always have to find credible information so that we will not be easily swayed by certain allegations. At the end of the day, there are so many groups working on monitoring our electoral processes to make sure that we will have credible elections. And I'm very sure that our election watchdogs will be the first one to cry out and tell the public, hello, we are no longer going to have credible elections because these are certain protocols have been not followed, or there were certain breaches in terms of what are the requirements under them. So I think we have to continue engaging. Hindi lang, pangalawang po ito, hindi lang din election watchdogs ang atin natin to be involved in the elections. If you truly believe in the candidates that you fully support, why don't you volunteer for them? Why don't you be part of their poll watchers on election day? Because at the end of the day, our political candidates are also a major stakeholder in the outcome of our elections. I think it's in their best interest to make sure that our process will remain to be credible and acceptable for all of us.
Maraming salamat. Unfortunately, we're out of time. I'll just invite our speakers for a brief message.
Yeah, I'll just take this opportunity to invite especially the young ones to join PPCRV. You can go to joinppcrv.org. Again, yes, we are connected to the Catholic Church, but we welcome all denominations. Okay, all faith are welcome, all volunteers are welcome. Thank you very much.
Hope life does not end with the elections. We are not doomed. We are, the elections can be a source of hope, but it can also be a source of motivation to do better. So, like also, so huwag tayong magpakonsundo. I'm a big fan of living life. Of course, there's still a pandemic, but guys, there's so much that the world, that our country has to offer. Let's not forget that. Right? So let's not forget that and not let the elections consume us and depress us, depending on where you sit.
Thank you. So I wanted to add, don't be discouraged, because you were saying like all these news and all that. And I want to add, so don't be discouraged, because what is important is that you're doing your part. Whether it's anything that you can contribute to nation building, whether it's campaigning for a candidate or working in your community or supporting your local government, do it. I mean, and again, it's true. I mean, after the elections, life goes on, and you have to do your best. Whether you're a student, you're in the private sector, you continue to work. Whether you're in civil society or you're not, you continue to work in the private sector. As long as you're able to contribute, as long as you find opportunities to be able to express yourselves as citizens, there's nothing is stopping you. And you can volunteer with PPCRV. You can also participate in their activities. And then we also have a lot of volunteer opportunities in YouthLed. Just in our Instagram and our Facebook. So Northern National Project Center.
Okay, maraming salamat. And if I heard everybody throughout this series, for all the questions maybe I think the answers are quite clear on two levels. One is the answer is right there. This is the Citizens Election Forum. So lahat ng tanong nyo kayo yung sagot.
Ikaw pa rin ba siya? It's the citizen. I was struck kanina na sinabi ni Darwin, citizen science. It's citizen. And you can basically take any problem and any challenge, citizens blank. When we, after 86, it was citizens governance, citizens transparency, and so on. We can take any problem. Citizens environmental protection, citizens local government monitoring, and so on. So magtanong lang yung magtanong dahil ibabalik ang sa inyo. And then secondly, on another level, the second thing that everybody is saying is hindi maganda. Hindi maganda yan, which is why maganda na kayo tatanda rin kayo. Katulad ng mga tao dito. Believe it or not, these were the student leaders. These were the youth leaders. Still young at heart, but there's wisdom in the message in there as well. Okay, ako si Robert Lamay. I'd like to thank Van, also Ma'am Myla, of course, at PPCRV, Darwin, and Shane, of course, maraming salamat. Okay.
Wait 3 seconds. Maraming salamat po sa ating mga speakers at maraming salamat sa lahat ng organizers natin ngayong hapon. Again, tayo po ang magpapalakas sa loob at sa hope na isa sa huwag po tayong sumuko, may laban pa tayo, may magagawa pa po tayo. Para po sa mga ating partners for our event for today, thank you so much to Asia Society, to PPCRV, at sa ating mga partner na youth organizations, Bantay Boto, JPSPA, PUPC, PSPASC, UP Kalasag, UP Pensipag SC, Umalohokan, and UP Solidaridad. Maraming salamat po. Follow nyo lang po sa Asia Society, pwede nyo mapanood yung ating episode anytime. Sa mga hindi pa po nag-register, punta lang po kayo sa registration area. Again, maraming salamat po sa ating lahat. Mabuhay ang kabataan, mabuhay ang demokrasya, mabuhay ang bansang Pilipinas. Thank you. Is it okay if we ask for a group picture?